heads up with that, okay? We're gonna switch Ashbury Ridge up to item A under new business, just to, because there's a lot of people.
Do we have the packet for Lance? Is that the one for Lance? You guys missed me?
The legal one. I know the bridge.
Can I see your, can I see Jessica's name? She's not gonna be here. I just wanna make sure. Jessica's not gonna be here. What's that? She can't make the call. Are you ready? I am. If you want to speak during time, just make sure to get my attention, or we'll figure out a way for you to speak. I don't know if we can get a microphone. Okay. Okay. Okay, welcome to the Mooresville Town Council Tuesday, August 4th meeting. We'll start with our Pledge of Allegiance and then our invocation, and Tom Wood will lead the invocation.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Dear God, as we gather this evening, this council asks for strength, courage, and wisdom. We thank you for the privilege and the honor of being able to serve this fine community. We also help us ask as our schools go back in session tomorrow that our children are safe and their educators are too. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
The first item on the agenda is to call the meeting to order, so the meeting is now in order. The second item on the agenda is the approval of minutes from the previous meeting, July 21st.
So moved.
We have a motion to approve the minutes. Do we have a second?
I will second with an edit on the first line that it says July 2nd, if we could change that to the July 21st.
Okay, my version has it correct, so
Mooresville Town Council met in regular session Tuesday, July 2nd. Seconds.
I was already made aware of that,
Yeah.
that it was wrong. I made the
it's
correction.
correct on the official copy. So are you good with your second?
Yep.
Without the revision then? Okay, so we have a motion and a second. All in favor? Aye. Motion passes. Next item would be Unfinished business, a gateway update. That'd be Dave Moore who's making his way down.
The last couple of weeks, we've redone the islands down South Indiana Street, took out a lot of the plants, added sod, I think cleaned it up a little bit, and eliminated quite a bit of maintenance. And then this week, we started working on smaller flower beds up here in town. Still have a few to do, but we're getting there and still waiting on parts for the lights. So,
Any questions for Dave? Thank you. Okay. Can you come up to the microphone and identify yourself? Thank you.
Steve Cohen. Why don't they just take all that garbage out there and put a turn lane in? I mean, I drive on the road in my car, not a tree. That was a screw up to start with. That wouldn't be that hard to take it out there and put a turn lane in. That's what it needs.
I don't know if I can speak to why we don't. I know we put a lot of money into it.
Yeah,
I was put in charge of maintaining it.
unfortunately you did, yes.
Just to be clear, it wasn't Dave.
I kind of gathered that already.
Yeah. He's,
Yeah, I know who voted for that.
okay.
I can say that we've met with a traffic engineer recently, and he is looking at doing an overall study of the town to see how we can free up some traffic congestion. I think the council will address that in the near future, and that was part of looking at how we can improve things. So,
That is true, and I will say that the council started looking at doing a traffic study, and then COVID hit,
Yeah,
and we didn't want to waste the money on the traffic study when nobody was driving.
that's understandable. That backed up a lot of things.
So now we're just delayed,
Yeah,
but
I understand that.
it is something in the works possibly.
So it's possible.
It's possibly an option.
Okay. All right, I was curious.
Anybody else? Okay, so now we're going to move to the rezone Ashbury Ridge. We're moving item C up to item A under new business. And I think we're gonna start with the rezone to R3 first, correct?
Yes, or consider them together, your choice.
Um,
Here. Lee, who wants to chime in on that? I don't know, but we certainly can take the R3 first
Okay.
because it's our plan that if the R3 should not pass, we would withdraw the open space.
I would say the best thing is to do one at a time. I don't care which one that you
Okay.
want to do, but since we have two separate ordinances.
So just to be clear with council is that should the R3 proposal, high density, not pass, then we would withdraw the open space. And I have a handout here. Here's one for. We were here before the council back 7, 8 months ago now with this same issue, except this proposal we believe is much, much better, and so did the plan commission, because it received a favorable recommendation, 5-1, and the plan commission, which most of you know, is the hearing authority. They receive the evidence, they weigh the evidence, and then they make a recommendation to the legislative body, which in this case is the town council. We've got a cover letter that you can read, pretty obvious. We've already discussed the fact that we would take them individually and that should the R3 fail, we would withdraw the open space. The Plan Commission, and a number of things that you have to consider though, is the 5 items that we listed in the center of the page. The proposed zoning is compliance with the Mooresville Comprehensive Plan. The current conditions and character of the uses, structures in each of the districts was considered. The proposed rezoning is the most desirable use for which the land is adapted. And property values throughout the Mooresville planning jurisdiction were conserved. And the proposed rezoning is responsible development and growth. Keeping in mind that the Planning Commission is the hearing authority and receives the evidence and considers the evidence and sends that recommendation to this body. R3 particularly, Lot 2, and it came with 6 conditions that would run with the land and could not be changed in perpetuity without going through the process of the public hearing before the Planning Commission, coming back to this body for a change in those commitments. And I won't go through them, but there's only 6. I'll let you read them. There was a lot of passion at the Planning Commission meeting, rightfully so. And the third sheet in has a lot of highlighted text on it. Specifically, it's addressing the Plan Commission, but in fact, I think it would be applicable to a council too in considering these types of issues. And particularly, the center of the page where it says public pressure, I will let you read that. But I think that the Planning Commission did their job in this case, considered everything, and in fact, did not cave to the public pressure because the Planning Commission was aware, as well as this body, that you represent the entire Mooresville community, not just the town of Mooresville, but the entire greater Mooresville area, even though they don't necessarily vote for you. My third page of 11 by 17 here, I think is very, very appropriate for this discussion tonight, in that one of the changes that we proposed and the reason we came back to the Planning Commission is that the area within the yellow line is where the proposed manufactured homes would be located. And you can see the green buffer space completely surrounding that yellow line that would be preserved. And in fact, the area south of the yellow line, and it's hard to see on here, but it's the magenta purple line, is the lot that would be open space and would be protected space. I won't go into all the other issues except to say that the rest of the packet addresses those issues that the Planning Commission addressed and in fact considered when they sent their favorable recommendation to you. So typically when a favorable recommendation comes to the legislative body, there has to be some overriding interest for the legislative body, other than perhaps, in my opinion, public pressure to not approve the recommendation of your Planning Commission. There's all kinds of issues floating around, and I'm sure tonight, before we're out of here, that you're going to hear about drainage, you're going to hear about eagles and owls and snakes and who knows what. But at the end of the day, the commission heard that same information and they submitted to you a favorable recommendation. Also, the last thing that I want to point out is one of the issues at the Planning Commission, one of the reasons it was continued to a second meeting, was that there were some issues with Ashbury Ridge existing development and their wastewater treatment plant. And it was determined and discovered that part of the problems with that wastewater treatment plant was that it did not have emergency generators. Therefore, in large rainfall events, it overflowed. So tonight at the Planning Commission meeting, we presented a estimate and a quote to have that emergency generator installed. And in fact, tonight in your packet about the fourth or fifth page back, in fact, is the work order to authorize installation of that generator and in fact, the deposit check to the company for installation of it. So I'm not gonna bore you with all the minutia that's inside of here, other than it is the evidence that was presented to the Planning Commission, and we're entering it tonight to the Town Council for your record, to show you that they did consider all the issues and they sent you a favorable recommendation. With that, I'll try to answer your questions. I can come up after the audience has had their chance to share with you and maybe address some of their concerns also, if that would be appropriate. So,
If that's okay with the council, you want to proceed that way? Okay, let's proceed that way.
okay, thank you.
We're going to have the microphone wiped in between each speaker. Should I go in the order of this to make sure we...
That's what I'm waiting to track of who's speaking.
Okay, Kent, I think it's Ebbing, but I don't know if I said that right. Okay.
Kent Ebbing, 4850 East Clearview Drive. Okay, I've been here before, so I'll make it short and sweet, so I should make everybody happy. You've got my major objectives. The first is the large page, which has 45 different people who live in my particular subdivision, Clearview, or Country View Estates, that borders down to the south. Phase 3, which has already been approved, is a R1 zoning. So first phase and second phase was finished out this year. So when this came up before last year, there was 47 houses, so there's about 52 houses now that's built out. So part of the complexity is phase 3 has already been zoned R1 with, if it's granted with the R3, even though they put in a buffering area, it sounds good. It's meant to pacify the different adjoining landowners. Sounds good on paper. That's why the zoning people said, well, it meets all the criteria, and they passed it. The downside of that is you're the governing body that dictates what Mooresville looks like in the future. So there's a reason it doesn't just stop at the zoning commission. It comes to you for a judgment to say whether or not this is in the long-term best interest of the citizens of Mooresville. So with that, my bullet points is we have numerous people on 2 different petitions that are opposed, so that's generally the immediate landowners. That doesn't represent the whole Mooresville population. But I didn't take a census of all of the people to say yes or no. So how many of those people are in favor of this? Well, you have to judge whether that's a favorable recommendation or against it. The other items, and this is kind of old hat, is Dan pointed out that our subdivision has been negatively impacted. Our values have risen. That's true because Ashbury Ridge has been held to a proper distance. As you expand further to the south, that could impact our existing homes. My concern isn't as much for our homes, although that's a consideration point. It's really phase 3 that's undeveloped. A developer is going to have to spend $800 to $1 million just put in the infrastructure to then sell lots and build out $250,000 homes. As it gets closer, and if it's expanded, phase 3 probably will never be developed. So that's a detriment to the tax base. So you'll see on page 2 are existing taxes of my home in the subdivision and what the value is in relationship to what Ashbury Ridge pays. So of course, the more you invest, the higher the taxes get. That helps the community. Whereas even though there's no demand and there's excess capacity currently in Ashbury Reds, they're asking for an expansion. Nobody opposes the manufactured housing being there. It's historical and it's been there. Question is, just should it be expanded? So the concern here is the expansion that might have huge negative consequences. So I've concerned myself with the front page. There's other people that are going to talk about other things as far as development. And is there any questions for me?
Looks like none, thank you.
Thank you.
Next on this list is Amanda Cohen. Did I say that wrong? Yes. She doesn't want to speak? Okay.
She didn't realize she was signing.
Okay, all right.
Okay, sign.
All right, well, at least your name got said in the microphone, so you're famous now. Jay or Joy DeFore?
Jay.
Jay.
It's also me.
Okay. And Evelyn? Okay. And then, yeah, two. Okay, so Mark Hester, or Mark Hetzer? Did I say that wrong?
No, Hunter.
Okay.
Hunter.
Hunter, okay.
Yep.
I just can't read the writing sometimes.
Yep. I live at 5,000 East Dutch Drive. I live across the lake from where the mobile home park's going, or the manufactured home park is going to get extended. My only concern about that is everybody knows where the lake's at, or most of the people do. On my side of the lake, when I bought that piece of property, I paid probably just as much for the property itself with the septic field put on it that a manufactured home would cost. But that's nobody's concern but my own. Next concern is I bought on that side of the lake, not on the other side of the lake, because you couldn't buy on the other side of the lake. But there's a good reason why you couldn't build on the other side of the lake, is because that dam that holds the water back in the lake is approximately 30 foot from the trailer park area to the top of the water. If something ever happened to that dam, I don't care if they are manufactured homes, my home will probably stand there with concrete holding it, but then we'll just get trashed on down and people would die. So whose response would that be to hold that dam up? Mine or Mr. Holloway's? That's my big question. Right now it's fine. If it did break, it would go on down to the creek and go, but if it broke with modular homes down there, whatever you want to call them, what would happen to them homes and the people into it? Good question or not a good question?
Good question.
There's 30 foot of water, and that holds a lot of water. I mean, 30 foot of elevation and change.
How big is the lake? 15 acres?
12 to 15 acres. I'm not even, don't even quote me on that, but I know it's 12 plus acres big. And we bought that piece of property, and I got a lot of money into it, building that house, but that's my priority. But I didn't want to have to worry about somebody on the other side of the lake getting killed if this lake's bust. This lake used to be a pay lake back in the day, in 1968. That dam's been there since 1968. Right on. And we do cut down trees if it gets too big, but there is a few there right now. And if one fail, adios anybody downstream. So I don't want that responsibility on my back. And there's only 2 people that own property on that dam, because I'm not putting anybody underneath the bus, but I don't want to put them underneath the bus, making them responsible. And a 6-foot privacy fence darn sure ain't gonna hold that water back. They take a concrete wall. If he wants to spend $1 million on a concrete wall, let him do his stuff. Thank you.
Thank you. I do have a Mark, there was a Mark Hunter who were just up, but there's a Mark Hetz, I think it's Hetzer at 4860 East Daisy.
That's all right. I didn't know it was like.
Okay, all right. I just didn't want to miss you. And Pam Hunter, were you wanting to come up as well? Okay.
Hi.
Hi.
I live at 5000 East Dutch Drive also. One thing I wanted to add to what my husband just spoke of. His company actually redid the dam, was it a couple years ago? So, the spillway on the dam. And he does water work. I think actually his company and previous companies has worked with Mr. Holloway before. So he knows what he's talking about when he talks about water and water work and dams and all of that. I know Mr. Holloway made light of the fact of snakes and owls, but that is part of, you know, why we moved there, because we have that beautiful scenery to look at. And yes, every day we see different kinds of wild animals. From our doorway, you can see deer, different types of birds. I won't get into all the details because I don't want to bore you guys with all of that, but there is a reason that you buy that type of property, and that is one of the main reasons. The last thing I want to point out is the safety issue. And right now, we rarely have anybody that gets into the water. And there is just a certain number of homes that own land in the water, part of the water. And there's, I don't know, maybe 6 to 8 homes that actually own property on the water. So if we add additional people from the mobile home park, we would have no way of keeping them away from what is now our so-called private water. And we've occasionally had kids to come down and get in the water that don't live in our area. And just as a safety concern, you know, we ask them to get out. Also, the water, you know, there's just different things in pond water, so you don't really want kids swimming in it. So that's another major concern. It's just a safety concern for other people, other kids or other people that might try to access the water.
With the access to the lake, I'm just curious, I've been back there.
Mm-hmm.
Are the homeowners on the lake the only ones that can access the lake, or does the whole neighborhood?
Yes.
Yeah.
The whole neighborhood does not access?
No,
Do you
just-
have trouble from them, kids up there? Okay.
They know.
They know the rules?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was just curious about that.
Okay, thank you.
And forgive me if I mispronounced this, is it Lynn Hendricks?
Yes.
Okay.
Is somebody there? She's not.
Oh, she's missing.
It's just all my mess. Counted out than I thought I did.
My name is Len Hendricks. I'm also a lake owner of Poplar Grove Lake at 5010 East Orchard Road. And I would also like to just start out by saying I appreciate Mr. Holloway trivializing all of our concerns. Everything that he says we have said is not important, but I believe it is. We live there, he doesn't. I'm just going to kind of read this off. This is one of those things that he says that you guys shouldn't worry about, but we think is very important. It's about the current state and the operational history of the wastewater treatment plant that Asbury Ridge currently operates. And I'll just kind of blast through this real quick, and I'll read it off. Asbury Ridge operates their small on-site wastewater treatment facility to treat the waste from their on-site development. It requires them to maintain a permit from the state in order to operate it. It requires a lot of things such as what they can discharge, how much, acceptable pollutant levels of bacteria, suspended solids, a variety of chemicals, monitoring, reporting requirements, and other provisions that make sure that what they are discharging onto another gentleman who may speak tonight's land doesn't hurt the water quality of that stream or anybody downstream. And this all dumps into White Lick Creek eventually, somewhere down around the east side of town. Unfortunately, if you review all the records in the item, which is the Indiana Department of Environmental Management's virtual file cabinet, which is our online file system, there's a whole history going back basically almost as early as the facility has been there of system management that is below standards. And that includes a variety of documents, incident reports, self-reporting that tells their discharge monitoring exceedances and things like that. They've had, just in the last 15 years, they've had 7 bypass overflow incidents, of which Mr. Holloway was speaking. He seems to think that it's all due to one piece of equipment. That is not true. There's been a variety of reasons why that facility is overflowed, most notably because it's undersized for what they're trying to treat right now. An example would be in March 2018 when 300,000 gallons of effluent was discharged directly into the receiving creek, and it was due again to high rainfall events. And they've had just numerous reports like that. I've included in the back half of this a variety of the different exceedance letters and incident letters and responses from IDEM. We've had a number of violation letters that consistently say that the system and its management is unsatisfactory throughout facility operations, self-monitoring, record report generation, and effluent limits compliance. Mr. Holloway will tell you that every wastewater treatment plant overflows sometimes. This one seems to, with even a modest rainfall, overflows almost always. They've also had a bunch of discharge monitoring reports that are put out by the operator that also state month-to-month exceedances and other issues that they have, and they usually state the reasons for why those happen. So, summarizing, the Asbury Ridge wastewater treatment facilities, they have had and they continue to have failures due to insufficient capacity, a very aging infrastructure, and substandard maintenance and operation. They've changed wastewater operators numerous times over the last 5 years. And it just demonstrates that they have an unwillingness, and consistent unwillingness, by the property owner, who is not here again tonight, by the way. I keep wondering when he's going to show up to try and talk to us directly, to invest sufficient resources to upgrade or maintain the current system or to keep it in compliance with the law. And I believe that that will indicate that once they do whatever it is they think they're going to do there, that whatever system they have, if it's an upgrade to this system, originally Mr. Holloway talked about that a whole new treatment facility would be put in. Last time he said, well, this system is rated to handle the additional effluent load that's going to be coming in from the new manufactured houses that they're planning on putting in. I fail to see how a failing system is going to support that many more homes and still survive. So with this track record, we, the concerned neighbors and residents of the Mooresville area, believe that this expansion and the operation of whatever treatment system they have at that point in time, even if it's upgraded or replaced, will continue to be operated and maintained at a substandard level. We're just not convinced that anything that they propose is going to be sufficient. And I think other people might stand up and speak a little bit more about that. I thank you for your time. Any questions?
How long did it take you to put all this together?
A couple hours. I'm an environmental geologist. I'm familiar with items, so I know how to go into their system and find the details. So,
thank you.
Okay.
Next on the list is Miss Karen Overbeck. Do you want to speak, Karen?
Karen Overbeck. I live at 11310 North Pennington Road. I've been a resident of that property for 68 years. So I've seen all these developments from when I was a child. It was the Coon Hunters Club that was there, and then the Weber Trailer Court, and now Asbury Park. My 4 things that I've mentioned, and I sent all of you emails about the things that I'm concerned about, is one, the wastewater treatment plant. It can't take care of what it has now. And when there's problems, it comes down on my property. When the power was out during the tornado, they had power because they were on IPL, on Power and Light. So they did have power at that time. One problem is there aren't any amenities for kids in the neighborhood. There's nothing for them to do. So if they expand and have families, where are these kids going to go and what are they going to do? That's 2 miles out of town. With Pennington Road, they're in the burn. There's not a shoulder. There's not even places for the kids to ride bikes out there. I'm concerned about the intersection of 144 and Pennington Road. With the added traffic, we've had several fatalities there. It's a dangerous intersection, and a light won't help because people come down the road too fast. They come down Pennington Road too fast. So it's even a problem for people to walk on Pennington Road. The other thing is the impact on the schools. With the added thing, what is this going to have with the school systems? Those are the things that I'm concerned about. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Ashley Scott.
Chief, that applause goes for you.
I just had surgery, so I'm going to give everything to Shane, and he can pass it down hopefully. The pictures might go every other person. We don't have enough copies for everybody to have their own. Thank you. Oh, I need a copy, I'm sorry.
You don't have this memorized by now?
No. I should. Thank you.
Okay, so
I'm Ashley Scott. I live at 4870 East Clairview Drive in Country View, and I've lived there for over 2 years now. And I think that you'll see this. The back of the pictures are labeled. You can see, you can follow along. I'm not going to bore and go through it again. The biggest thing I want to present today is I want you to see things from our perspective. We have a drone photography business, so that's what we did. We took pictures from the sky so that you could actually see everything that we're talking about. Everything along the lake where people live, the dam, the mobile home park, Pennington where Mrs. Overpeck lives. You can see everything, and I've explained it here. And I want to say that it takes a lot of guts to come up here and talk. And so I care about the eagles. I see them in my backyard. I care about the squirrels and the foxes and all the animals that are on page number 2. I care about those. And they've come to mean even more to us during this quarantine because we can just go outside and see and love on them and feed them. And it takes a lot of joy from us to do that. We love doing that. And so when you're potentially ruining those habitats and taking that away from us, you're taking part of our joy away. And so all of those pictures are self-explanatory, in great detail. And I want to say that last time I spoke this exact same thing to the Planning Commission, and I was made a mockery. Mr. Holloway basically got up here and said, oh, the little squirrels and the eagles. No, it means something to all of us to live there, and we live there for a reason. So that's all I want to say.
next, Douglas Sims.
My name is Doug Sims. I live at 10620 North Holland Drive South. I want to talk quickly about the financial aspects of owning a modular home. Using an apples to apples comparison, that 3 to 4% interest rate, $100,000 mobile home, which is what Mr. Holloway had initially said would go into the new area, coupled with the $400 a month lot rent, rounds out to somewhere around $1,100 a month for the payment. The equivalent house is $150,000. The truth is, interest rates for modular homes are closer to 8%, mainly because the bank says we can't trust that we will get our money back because they depreciate so quickly. That said, the affordable housing argument that's usually made is stretching the truth. When the affordable house is classified as something less than about $165,000, with lot rent, with the price of the modular home, that's what the modular home, what the residents are paying, roughly. Plus, at the end of 15 years, the homeowner gets the house. Modular home people get the house, but they still get to pay the $400 a month lot rent in perpetuity. Modular homes depreciate fast, so financing an asset that depreciates that quickly is a great way to keep people broke. And finally, on a second note, in the past, Mr. Holloway has suggested that everybody deserves a decent place to live. Now, deserve is an interesting concept because the neighbors to Ashbury Bridge that have raw sewage flowing across their land don't seem to deserve that. Perhaps I'm wrong. I know historically raw sewage was used in the Middle Ages to fertilize crops. They also had the Black Death. I think we've come a bit farther than, yeah. Go COVID. At least it's not spread by rats. Anyways, that concept of deserve. For years, that treatment plant has been failing. Only recently has it been decided, oh, yeah, I'll improve that. Why not last year? Why not 2 years ago? I would make the argument that perhaps the owner doesn't care because the owner hasn't been here for at least a year that we've come back to talk about this project over and over again. I would take any questions, or I can go sit down. All right, thank you.
Thank you. Next is Beth Perry.
My name is Betty Perry, and I live at 60 Ashbury Ridge in Mooresville, and I've been the community manager there since May of 2007. Ashbury Ridge is not a rental community. We're different than any other manufactured home community in Morgan County. All of our residents own their homes or they have legitimate mortgages. The majority of our homes were purchased outright as cash sales by people who sold the family home and sold the family farm and chose to buy a home and live in Ashbury Ridge. Our homes are all built to industry specs. We have all kinds of controls. The state is involved, IDAM is involved. Contrary to what you hear, manufactured home prices do not depreciate in a setting like ours. It's not like any real estate. It's the quality of the product, the condition of the product, and the location of the product. We routinely sell used homes in Ashbury for more than what they cost new. Ask anyone with a manufactured home in Florida about depreciation, and you'll hear some really outstanding prices on homes down there. Our homes might not be as big, and they might not cost as much up front as those in a stick-built neighborhood. But what does that have to do with the quality and the character of the folks who have chosen to make their home here? Most of my residents are between 40 and 80. At least 85% of my residents have one car. We don't have a crime problem. We take pride in our homes. We honor our veterans. We watch out and care for our neighbors. And we're proud to be residents of Ashbury Ridge. My request to you is when you're considering this proposition, remember, we've got a great place to live. We've been a good neighbor and a partner of the Mooresville community for over 30 years. Thank you.
Sorry, I called you Beth. It was Betty. I misread it. Can I ask you a quick question?
Yes.
What is the average price of the home in your addition?
Depends. Used home, probably 50,000 to 65,000. Brand new home, between 75 and 100.
Okay, thank you.
Hey, I have a question for you. The lots up front that are required to not be,
Because we have to put all, that was the oldest part of Weber Village, and
Right.
it has the most deteriorated water sewer, so that all has to be redone.
are you guys considering that?
Oh, sure.
Why not that before this new project?
He hasn't said a thing, he's just offering a proposition. We don't set any kind of date.
Okay.
Yeah, he'll do other
Okay.
renovations before that. All right, thank you.
Next, did anybody have any questions for her before? Okay. Next, Dennis Campbell.
I do apologize, I just recently had heart condition, so I'm moving a little slower. Ladies and gentlemen, my name's Dennis Campbell. I just recently purchased property there on the lake. Matter of fact, purchased additional acreage so I could have lakeside. And enjoy it. I'm looking to retire here from the federal government. I'm a veteran. That must mean something, because the last time I was here, I kept hearing it. But it's not something that I go around flaunting. One thing I'd just like to say is, you know, I enjoy the fact that I got to pick a piece of property and pay an amount where I could enjoy the scenery, the quiet, and some of the other little things around the lake. And I would like to think that I don't have people telling me what I can and can't look at. And from where I sit at the end of the lake and I look directly down it, I would probably see a lot of things disappear if this was allowed. And that would mean that somebody made a choice for me that had probably deeper pockets to decide for me, because they could afford to do whatever they wanted to do. And I just would like y'all to, you know, give consideration to the little people. Now, you know, I'm not going to point fingers at anybody and make fun of anything, because everybody deserves a place to be. I just don't want somebody to take my place to be. So I'd like to thank you very much. Please take care. Are there any questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for your service.
Chris Sims.
Hello, Chris Sims, 5001 East Dutch Drive. I own the property adjacent to the east of the open space area and across the lake from there. Last year, I had asked if he would build a fence to prevent people from getting into the lake, and he said no, because the area was unusable. This year, he has said that he came up with a better plan that would suit us, and he removed some of those houses that he wanted to build, and then added this open space area. I don't know if that's because that area was unusable to begin with, and then he decided we would try it this route, and maybe it would pass. But I am worried about children getting into the lake and, you know, possibly drowning or something. It's a big fear of mine. So, other things other people have kind of touched on. So, thank you.
Thank you. Dana, I'm gonna guess Darrington. Is it Darrington? It is. I knew I'd be wrong.
Short, sorry. I'm Dana Darrington. I live at 10705 North College Drive South. I'm in Poplar Road. I just want to touch on some of the same things my neighbors have touched at. I don't live on the lake, but I live across from the lake, and one of the reasons I do live in a community that Mr. Holloway trivialized is that we did choose to live there because of the scenery and because we want to live in the nature and we do want to enjoy those things. And those things aren't little things. They're things to be appreciated because of expansion and the way people are treating the environment. Those are special. Those are things that we shouldn't take for granted. Those are things that we should pass on to our children and appreciate. That nature is a part of our society that we need to treasure and not tear down. And also, if you've ever driven down Pennington, you know that you can barely pass 2 cars down that road. And I have a truck, and I know sometimes I get off the road, and sometimes I almost end up in a ditch. And lately, they cleared the green space, and then there's animals that live down there, and those animals come out into the road. And also, if they add more people to Ashbury Ridge, and there is no place, like they discussed earlier, for these kids to play or to do anything, there's nowhere for them to ride their bikes, there's nowhere for them to walk. I know I used to run along those roads. I can't run anymore along those roads because I don't want to get hit. And also, the erosion and the pond has overflowed many times with little rain. It's overflowed onto our neighborhood. I know that the dam has been cracked and had to be repaired, and our neighborhood repaired that, not Mr. Holloway. And then also, it can't accommodate all the traffic, the additional traffic that he's saying. And in their neighborhood, they have more than 1 car per home. You can't just generalize that. And the houses in there, I've been through there. Some of the houses are nice. Some of the modular houses. Some of them are not nice. Some of them are torn down. Some of them are in disrepair. But we're not saying that they shouldn't have a place to live. But it does bring our property value down. And also, it is a concern, a safety concern. I have children. I have 6 children. They're not allowed to go play in that lake, and they know it. And we have a community, and we talk to one another, and we call each other, we text each other, and they know not to go in that lake. And what happens when those kids move into that neighborhood, they come and get in that lake, and one of them dies, God forbid. A 6-foot fence is not going to protect them from dying. And that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Mark Williams. I like your last name.
What was that?
I like your last name.
I know, we sure call him.
We don't have those.
Well, my name is Mark Williams, and I live at 4890 East Clearview Drive. Wanted to come up really to just voice my opposition to the expansion of Ashbury Ridge. And a lot of my neighbors and community members have already hit on a lot of the things, but I wanted to bring an aspect that hasn't been talked about because I don't know that anybody up here can necessarily speak on that. And that would be the fact that I'm a first-time homebuyer at 24 years old. I was born and raised in Mooresville, and I decided to stay here rather than go to Brownsburg, Avon, Plainfield, Center Grove area. I came back to Mooresville. Are any of you guys lifelong residents of Mooresville? I know Mr. Cook from playing football from Mooresville and going through the school system. My point being, a lot of my classmates that I graduated with and those in my age group have decided to go to other communities. Can anybody tell me why that is? Other communities are growing with what? Nicer accommodations, right? A mobile home park in my backyard is not something that I can tell you somebody in my age group is going to be attracted to. I know that the one that is there is existing, and I knew that when I bought my home last October. To that point, had I known that there was an expansion plan, when I bought my home, the builder told me that that was zoned for upper scale housing. So I paid $250,000 for my home, thinking that it may appreciate in value, not that additional mobile homes would be within the distance that in the wintertime I will be able to see. Beyond that, had I known that, I would not have come back to the community that I was born and raised in. I would have moved on to another that was truly invested in its people and would attract the people that will get and pay for, that we talked about the tax base, pay for nicer schools and nicer things in our community so that we can compete with other communities. I believe in that for Mooresville. Beyond that, I'm also a local fireman. I've worked the fatalities that have been in that intersection. You guys don't handle that. The town of Mooresville does not handle that. It's a state issue. So why would the town of Mooresville vote to add additional cars to that intersection? Mr. Cook, I know you're past. I know we haven't necessarily worked together. You've seen some of those things that I'm talking about. Why would we do that? Why would we do that when we've got 69 coming in, so the traffic flow is going to be greater anyway? I don't think Mr. Holloway is making that cut on that car to cut that 16-year-old girl out of the car. He didn't do it. I did. I can speak to that. Beyond that, when we talk about property value and things like that, I think it's very discouraging for somebody buying their first home, spending a great amount of money like I did, and to feel like the local politicians that are elected may not support us. I hope that you guys consider the things that have been discussed today beyond nature of traffic, property values, people that live on the lake and have concerns. I hope you consider all those things because I think it's very clear that in what Mr. Holloway said in his opening statement that he's concerned with the greater Mooresville area. The greater Mooresville area isn't impacted by this. The people that are speaking here tonight are who are impacted by this. Please consider that when you make your decision. Are there any questions? Thank you.
Thank you. James Keller.
Good evening. Jim Keller, 4831 East State Road 144. There's been a lot of discussion tonight about the sewage treatment plant, but my concerns are more rooted in the trees, if you would. The development of this area, the area that he's wanting to develop right now is covered with trees and underbrush, very heavily so. When we get a large rain, we do get flooding of Pennington Road. Now, whether it's coming out of the sewage treatment plant for not functioning properly or whether it's straight rainfall, the proposal that he's putting in creates a lot of driveways, streets, and roofs on homes. This is all hard surface. This is not going to absorb drop one, assuming the roofs are good. We're going to have a lot more rainfall runoff from this development that right now is marginal. If we have a really hard rain, right now it floods. I haven't seen any development of this thing adding to or modifying their retention pond. So if they take out all of this undergrowth that absorbs and retains the rainfall, we get the large rainfalls now, we're going to have flooding of Pennington Road even more often. It's going to lead to more maintenance, probably eventually a larger drain system having to be put in underneath Pennington Road to handle this rainfall. I don't know if DNR is going to have to get involved in this for a permit for this amount of off-run that they're going to have out of this thing, but nobody's mentioned whether or not they have a DNR approval yet for what they're going to do to all the downstream properties. Part of that little creek goes across my property. This afternoon I was out there line trimming along the creek, and it was maybe an inch, inch and a half, continuous run. I have seen that go from that inch and a half to nearly out of the banks at 8 foot deep in a matter of 6 to 8 hours. You put that kind of rainfall on hard roofs, hard streets, hard parking areas, even if they're gravel, it's still not going to absorb the rainwater and retain the rainwater that the undergrowth and trees are out there now. That's my main concern. Any questions? Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you. I think this is Roy Burge. Did I say that wrong?
We didn't sign up to talk. We thought we were signing.
Okay, so both of you, Myra and Roy?
You're right.
Oh, okay. Alan Ramsey?
My name's Alan Ramsey. I live at 184 Ashbury Ridge. I've been a 32-year resident of Ashbury Ridge. I've listened to a lot of comments about the lake runoff. I just came up here to state that there is a 15-acre lake 100 yards east of the lake, the 4-acre lake at Ashbury Ridge. Any runoff that folks have been talking about as running down Pennington Road being Ashbury Ridge's fault is, you have to consider there's a 15-acre lake that runs off right into the pond at Ashbury Ridge. It's not Ashbury Ridge's water.
That's incorrect.
That's incorrect.
I reckon.
Completely different drainage.
Were you done? I don't want him interrupted. Were you done? Or did you have more to say?
No, I just wanted to point out that the 15-acre lake behind us it runs over into our lake. I live right on the lake in Ashbury.
No one should ever run somebody off this podium. Not while I'm here. Thank you. Are you done? Okay. Next is Mrs. McKinney.
Jim McKinney. I live at 106 Full Road, North Holland Drive South. I'm here to ask the audience if we could have a show of hands as to how many people here are in opposition of this zoning change, please.
Over here, too.
Two more in the back. Just so we have a good understanding.
Can we go ahead and ask who's for, just so we can see who's for the change? Who's for the zoning change? Raise your hands, it's okay. Nobody's gonna bite you. Okay, thank you. Go ahead, sorry to interrupt you.
That's all right. I just want to start off by saying that the Indiana State Code that is 36-7-4-603 states specifically the reasons for a rezone change. This is not personal. This is really not political. What we're looking at is a reason to make the change. The burden needs to be on the petitioner, not on all of the defendants here. He needs to prove why all 5 of those components fall under the state jurisdiction. If you look at the list that I have given you, the additional opposition, I personally had all of them signed. If you take out the 11 people that live in Ashbury Ridge, that all live on the pond, that have signed the petition because they are not property owners, that still gives 78 signatures of residents in the local area that's in opposition. So we understand that he's a taxpaying citizen, that Mr. Holloway's client is a taxpaying citizen. Everybody has the right to do with their property what's in what they seem as to be the best interest. But as a governing board, if you or Mr. Buckner that owns the 20 acres in front of the Ashbury Ridge, and he decided that he wanted to put a landfill in there, would there be opposition? Would you think that is the best use of that land for the city? It's his decision. Would that be something that would be suitable? It's his decision. If you own a business in town and it's a family business and somebody wanted to put a strip club next to it, is that the best decision for the city? Because it can be changed. Should it be changed? Does it meet the right criteria to do that? That's a question for the board. Also wanted to say, as you go through what I've stated in the comments, there are many in here with page numbers that are listed here in your comprehensive plan that doesn't meet the criteria. There is items such as affordable housing, what we've all proven, and that's not been affordable. We know that property, I have been a realtor, I have been a broker, and I can tell you for a fact that that will depreciate the property. No questions asked. If you've been at that intersection, like Mark was talking about, and we all have, we all know, an infectious amount of property or traffic. It's horrible there. We have a hard time getting in and out. And I can speak for Mr. Bob Branch, who is not here tonight. He lives in the A-frame on the northwest corner of 144, and he wanted me to mention that his wife has been hit twice at that intersection at the corner of their own property. There is no plans to do anything about skating the hill. Like they said, if people come over fast, it's a horrible intersection, and I know you've all traveled it, so you know. Wanted to comment. We're not here to deny that we didn't drive by the property. No one is saying that the Ashbury Ridge didn't exist, Weber didn't exist way back in the day. What we are here to talk about is the local development or question on what he's considered open space and rezoning. This is not Florida. We're not talking about whether we cut each other's grass or the ability to have good neighbors. This is not a character reference. We're here to talk about specifically, is this good use of land? And if you look on 2 pages that I had recently handed out to you, and read these 2, you can see there are descriptions that follows the state code using the comprehensive plan to designate this to be true. You can also see on this account that's been highlighted, along with this from Ashbury Ridge, which is the area that is already been approved R3, was approved R3 for Ashbury Ridge a long time ago and is undeveloped. Don't know why that is. If they can't meet the criteria, I don't know. But there is plenty of available space for growth already designated R3. Last year I went to Ashbury Ridge. I asked about property, what they had over there. This was given to me. There's a black and white copy in your packet. This particular sheet was given to me by Betty in Ashbury Ridge. And what I did was highlighted the 5 properties that were sold in Ashbury Ridge. Averaged those come out to be $37,300. In Mooresville, we need a property tax base of over $200,000 to be contributing to our infrastructure. You guys figure it out. pages. This is a page that's highlighted from your comprehensive plan. It's in the addendum. It's a survey that the developers of the comprehensive plan took. The question is, as Mooresville continues to grow, what type of housing would you like to see encouraged? There's all kinds of options: affordable housing, apartments, hotel, motel, single-family homes. 0% said mobile home parks. Nobody that you surveyed said that they would want to see the growth of a mobile home park. Mr. Holloway will contend that you can put a mobile home anywhere in the city, in any lot you have. We're not objecting to that. The point is the growth of the park in the area that's designated. That's what we're objecting to. The ground itself, has been stated, has a distinct drop-off, and I'll point this out in the topographical map that came from Terry Brock. Right here is the designated property, and as you can see, the topographical map has got a huge decline. This is a big valley. This is Poplar Grove Lake here, and this is Ashbury Ridge Pond up here. There is no way that this lake is going to flow uphill any more than their lake is going to flow uphill. This is all drainage and comes out on Pennington Road.
Could I see that?
Certainly.
Or were you done presenting it? I'll pass it down.
Yeah. What I do want to show you up close.
Okay.
These pictures indicated runoff from the Ashbury Pond. We knew this was going to come back up. He was voted down last year, so we knew that it was coming back up. So this spring, in just a rain, I'm going down Pennington, and I just stopped and snapped these pictures because we knew we'd need them this year again. So we just wanted you to see all the runoff from the pond down parallel to Pennington. This wasn't even enough rain. Wasn't regular rain. This wasn't an outlandish rain this past year. And again, in this particular picture, we can see the erosion of where it's supposed to go and where it is going, two entirely different places. In conclusion, I just want to state that I am in favor of all of the people that have already had a discussion. I don't think this is caving under pressure. I think this is taking the job of the community serious. And I appreciate the fact that you guys have listened, and we know that the local jurisdiction will be a responsible body and conclude that the criteria does not meet the requirements by the state code set as guidelines. Thank you.
Thank you. That concludes the sign-in. Was there anybody else that wanted to speak? Okay. Come on up.
My name is Dave Steele. I live on at 4681 East Pennington Lane. It's at the intersection of Apple Valley and Pennington. And this was something that I had brought up in a previous mentioning, but it actually happened to me, I think it was last Friday. I left my house to do some shopping in town in Mooresville. I came back. Of course, the way the road comes up the hill, you can't see anything. And lo and behold, there was a mobile home taking up the whole road, taking up over 2/3 of Pennington Road. And it wasn't just me, there was 3 or 4 cars behind me, and we all had to stop because there was no way that we could get by. I looked, and I've done mobile home work. The guy was tightening the wheel lugs on the wheels on that mobile home. Normally, the protocol, when we did anything like that, before we left the park, all that was done. It was flagged, lighted, and everything was checked. Because you don't pull out and block a county road or a highway. My concern is, okay, that was just me. I'm just an individual. Okay, it cost me a 2-mile trip to go all the way south to the roundabout and all the way back around. I can deal with that. Emergency vehicles probably couldn't. Mine was a time thing. This could be a life or death situation if that happens again. And like I said, I brought this up before about what happens if this happens. Well, you can play what if games all day long, but it did happen. The other thing I'd like to ask Miss Bennett is, if mobile homes are such a good bargain and such an investment, if I bought a new home from you for $80,000 today, lived in it 2 years, would you pay me more for it in 2 years than what I paid for it? Oh, yeah. You'd sign a contract? I'm sure Mr. Doherty would do that.
You address it for council.
I'm sorry. I guess that's all I got. I mean, the emergency thing with the mobile home sitting in the road, I mean, I realize if they break down, they've got no place to go. This wasn't broken down. They were working on it, trying to prep it for moving out. And I don't know. Like I said, protocol would say usually you do that stuff in the park before it hits the road, and then you're ready to move it. But there was no flag vehicle, nobody letting you know. You crested the hill, there it was. I don't imagine that you have any questions, but if you do, I'm here to answer. Thank you.
Yes.
May I have a few words?
Yes, just 1 second here. Jeff, are you running out of time?
8:30, I think.
Okay. Thank you. All right, yes, go ahead and come up. How many more want to speak real quickly? 1, 2.
Oh, my goodness.
How many? 1, 2. Okay, very good. Thank you.
My name is Mary Harold. I'm married to the guy that knows everything about sanitation. I live at 5010 East Orchard Road. And I just simply wanted to say, the last time I spoke to the Planning Commission, I first wanted to apologize to all of the Ashbury Ridge neighbors that were in attendance. There was a great deal of misunderstanding from the June Planning Commission meeting, and there have been some tough words going back and forth between the value of a mobile home park, the value of a mobile home, you know, what makes sense financially. A number of individuals, I've met a number of individuals, neighbors in Ashbury Ridge, working towards, you know, our hoped for outcome. And they are truly wonderful human beings who I have enjoyed getting to know, speaking with. I can't tell you if they are in opposition or not, but I can say that they really, Ashbury Ridge is, the people I have met there are marvelous people, and it is a marvelous community. This is not about the quality of that community. It is about the expansion of that community onto property that would devalue all of our homes, not just Poplar Grove Lake, not just Country View Estates, but also the homes in Ashbury Ridge. It would get rid of the big, beautiful trees behind Ashbury Ridge that make their homes so cool, so comfortable, so lovely to live in. And it would have an impact on their quality of life as well as our quality of life. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. Pardon me. That's all right.
My name is Ed Bucker. I own property adjacent to the mobile home park. I am west of the oldest part of the park with a contingent property line of about 800 and some feet, and I'm north of the newer part of the park. The park's kind of L-shaped. I fit in that elbow. There's an eighth of a mile of property, adjoining property line there on the south of my property. Here on top, I have a aerial satellite photograph of our property line. Shows where the expansion of the park, possibly as much as 15 years ago or more, and how they've infringed upon my property. On the adjoining pages, I have 3 pages of pictures of trash that the mobile home residents have dumped on my property. And nothing's ever been done by the park to clean that mess up. My emphasis is really on the park as a good neighbor. I've never found them to be a good neighbor. They have, the treatment plant is it's in the old part of the park within 20 feet of my property line. Their effluent has illegally flowed across our property going back years and years. I think on this handout, I think on the 3rd page, there's a letter here or mentioning back to 1966 with problems. Another concern I have is why I wasn't entitled to be notified of this rezone when I have this property right next to the treatment plant. And I wouldn't have known if Mrs. McKinney hadn't contacted me about it. In the early 1930s, Gulf Pipeline put a pipeline through across the country from Tulsa, Oklahoma to somewhere in Ohio. And when I bought the property, when it goes across my property, it was covered. Over the years, the effluent from this treatment plant has increased more and more as time went on. The biggest, they have started pumping it to their lake. The papers in here indicate from the state that they required them to correct the illegal discharge that went across my property and send it to their lake. But in the intervening time, this pipeline has had all the dirt washed off of it, and now the pipeline has 4 feet of air underneath it where it's been washed out from under the pipeline. It was referred by Lynn as being a stream. It was never a stream, it's just a gully. And we used to be able to drive across there at the point where the plant releases their water. It's washed out so neat now, there's no way across over there. Time and time again, he mentioned finding 15 instances of raw sewage overflowing there in the plant coming across my property. I assure you, it's been many more times than that. It didn't take a big rain to overwhelm the plant and run raw sewage. It was just, there's a incident report here where this happened in May. We had a big rain in June, and I'm sure in June it overflowed raw sewage again, but there's not been a report made yet. I checked the IDEM website, it's still not been reported. That's been 2 months ago. Normally their reports come in about 30 days at the end of the month, so a few days the next month. IDEM inspects the plant on normally once a year. They send somebody to check, to inspect the plant. Almost always they're written up for violations. Some of those violations are, I've included them. My brother is a retired journeyman electrician, union electrician. He always liked rounding out fairly, but point out that all you need to know to be a plumber was that SHIT runs downhill. Pardon my reference to that. But I'm downhill, so that's what I get from them. I think that if you are honest and consider the fact that if you own that property that I own, and this has happened to you time and time again, you would not vote in favor of this rezone. And I'm asking you not take that into consideration and turn them down. It's been pointed out that they're planning on purchasing a backup generator, and that will solve the problem. They have electricity in the plant, and I said they have a current backup generator, and the problem hasn't come from lack of electricity, it comes from increased rainwater because of infiltration on a daily basis. They can handle it, but you get half inch of rain and you get a sewage overflow. I hope you'll take all that into consideration and turn this down. Thank you.
I do have a question. Has any of the sewage reached your property?
Oh, yeah.
What about?
It comes out of their plant, and by the time it gets to that wall, it's on my property.
Okay.
On that, the aerial photograph, I indicated on here,
How about the one on
there
June
in the
1st?
margin, my property is here. The treatment plant is right here.
Do you know if the one on June 1st reached your property?
There was it happened during May. The report was made on June 1st. And it did, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Anytime it overflows, it ends up on me. Anyone else have a question? Okay, thank you for your time.
Did I see one more hand? Okay. Come on up. And then we'll go to Mr. Holloway.
Hello, my name is Holly Stone. I live at 5964 East Orchard Road. Me and my boyfriend own a home there. We bought it about 4 years ago. And we pretty much touched on a lot of stuff, but I just kind of like to reiterate it, especially as the last speaker. When it comes to the drainage, I can tell you at my home, which is a little bit further on Orchard Road, when it rains, it doesn't have to rain crazy, but it floods so bad, it floods in the front, and then my neighbor has 2 pumps, and it floods and it turns into a pond. So imagine if they can't control it now, what it's gonna be like if you do take away all the trees, if you do take away, and they don't fix those problems. Traffic. Think about all the traffic and construction that's going on right now. It took me 3 times the amount of time to get here as it normally would. Imagine if you had that much more people and construction. What's it gonna do on the road at Pennington that turns into Orchard? As other people have said, it's a small road. 2 cars barely fit on there. I used to walk my dogs. I no longer do. Why? Because if you get a rainy day and you try to walk your dogs, you're gonna get splattered with water and mud, or there's 2 cars coming. You gotta hurry up and get over because they didn't see you, they weren't paying attention, they were going too fast. It's a dangerous road, okay? So what happens if you get the kids and they live there? What do kids do? They walk around. They go play. They find things to do. Find things like water, like the lake. And if you say, well, we'll put a wall up, we'll do this. Kids do what kids do. They find things to do when mom and dad are home. Another thing when it comes to is, which they touched on, is the nature. Not everybody's a nature lover. Not everybody's an animal lover. But the one thing everybody can, if you know anything about housing, is what costs more. Does a house that, if you're looking for houses, a house that's in a small neighborhood with low acreage costs, you can get a lot more for money than a house that has acreage. And it costs a lot more to get a house with acreage and land than a house with acreage and in the woods. So to get that, the animals and the scenery and all of those things they're talking about taking away, that is part of the community, and that's actually what is going to increase the income and the people and the type of people that move here. That's why we all live here. That's what makes the community there the type of community that it is. So I just kind of wanted to touch on all of that stuff and just reiterate it. I thank you for your time. I think everybody here that has been in opposition pretty much has touched on a lot of stuff. And I just hope that you take all that into consideration when you make your decision. Thank you.
Thank you. Oh, sorry. After it's wiped off. Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, okay. Can I let him speak first? I don't think I can get a microphone back to you.
I could probably speak up loud enough, they could probably hear me.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay. My name is Don Wallace, and I live at 5226 East Orchard Road. We're right at the corner of Holland Drive and Orchard. Orchard Road is at an elevation, and there are no swells along the road to collect the runoff water. And so we experience a lot of water coming off of Orchard Road that cascades down my driveway and down Holland Road. That compounds a problem with the fact that the elevation of the lake and Ashbury Ridge are at the same elevation level, basically. And when you're going to take and dump all that water, it's got to go somewhere. Now, there's residents to the west of us that actually goes, the road dips down, and you can almost walk right off of the property line right into the lake. And those people could have a great problem if the elevation of the water rises rapidly. It will flood a lot of those homes. My biggest concern is all of us that face Orchard Road, not dealing with the new addition that's at the corner of Pennington and Orchard. All the rest of us are on septic systems, and we're on a variety type of septic systems. Some are dosers, some are mound systems, and I'm sure there's some that are gravity fed. If you raise the water table in the ground, and those people are at the same level as the lake, and you're dumping extra water, we could have septic systems going on all the way around that lake, and it could affect all the septic systems that are up on Orchard Road. Probably wouldn't catch me because mine's in the front yard, but a lot of theirs are in the backyard next to the lake. And because of the fact that you've got already a problem with the sewage, and I'm new to the game of listening to what is going on, but the sewage plant that is in Ashbury Ridge apparently has some situations that are not being corrected, and there's no studies going on on how to deal with the drainage of stormwater right now, or to put sanitation sewers out on Orchard Road and all the surrounding houses. So my biggest concern, we could have catastrophic failure. We have seen water, my lot kind of tails off and goes down to the level of the addition that surrounds the lake. And I've lived here 19 years, and one year we had 4.5 foot of water in my backyard because of torrential rains and because kids were playing and did some goofy things, and the people down there on the lake got it straightened out. Or I could have had a situation where my crawl space would have filled. We have a sump pump, we're on a crawl space, and when it rains, you can ask her, the sump pump never shuts off. It's just constantly pumping water. So we have some drainage issues that we as residents deal with on a continuing basis, and I sure don't want to see us all have to deal with septic systems failing because of the water table being rising, because you're going to take all the plant life and disturb it a little bit. Plus, to mention the fact that that is kind of like a wildlife refuge for animals, and we have seen some eagles in there, and we do know that bats live in that area. So we're concerned more, I'm concerned more about a sanitation issue that could arise on it letting Ashbury Ridge expand. Thank you.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. President. Everything you've heard tonight, probably without exception, there might be a couple, was heard at the Plan Commission, your Plan Commission, probably over a period of 5 hours given the 2 meetings. Everything you've heard here tonight, all the evidence that you've been presented, including what I've given you, was heard by the Plan Commission, your Plan Commission. That Plan Commission, the 5 members that voted for this, 3 of them were appointed by this council. 2 of them that voted for it are buffer zone representatives. The people, the representatives for people here in Ashbury Ridge, the Poplar Grove Lake, places like that. They heard all of these things. Tonight, we're not here about drainage. We're not even here about wastewater treatment plants. We're here about a rezoning issue. Is it appropriate, given that Ashbury Ridge is existing as R3 to the north, we've got R1 in the south, ag on the east and west, should this parcel, 15 acres, be rezoned to R3, given that there would be a buffer, a green space preserved to the south between this use and the R1 use? Another thing to consider is that most of these folks, a lot of them, if you will turn to the last page of the exhibit, this one, you will see that most of the folks that live in Poplar Grove around it are well over 500 feet, in one case over 1,000 feet between the proposed R3 use. Even those folks that would be in the future, not existing, the future country view are over 300 feet or almost 300 or greater to the proposed R3 use. So we're not here tonight to talk about all those other things. Isn't it appropriate use? The Plan Commission said it was. In your packet, you will see some sheets that have the Mooresville Comprehensive Plan in it, specifically page 81 shows a map. Future land use map shows that this area is to be residential. Doesn't define whether it's R1, R2, or R3, just residential. If you go on in your comprehensive plan and you go to sheet page here, 53, and I'm just going to read this. And this is, says also when, this is sort of in the single center of the stage, also when single family units are the dominant housing form, there are a few options for town residents who want to or must live in higher density units. Then on down. Finally, the preference for single family home also ignores the national shift in demographics. That may even be more true today as the county's population age. Different housing types are becoming increasingly popular with the baby boom generation, downsizing from a single family home to a patio home, townhouse, condominium, or apartment. And I would dare say you could insert here manufacturing homes, a community with different lifestyles. The residents who can't afford those options locally will move elsewhere. This is a classic example of appropriate zoning. It's not spot zoning. You're not plunking down an R3 over here in the middle of nowhere with no adjacent uses that are compatible. In fact, this is an appropriate use. The preservation of the open space was an issue that the client agreed to in order to preserve this green space and open space and preserve some of those things. There's discussion tonight about, well, the lake is going to flow over these houses. These are houses are higher on higher ground. None of them will be below the level of the dam. This is just the first step too, I might add. The Mooresville UDO, your new zoning ordinance, requires that this development come back to the Planning Commission at a hearing for development plan approval. At that time, we would address wastewater treatment plant, we would address stormwater, we would address traffic, and the Planning Commission at that time could ask for any and all types of studies, any and all types of documentation, any and all types of permits in order to show that the development to be constructed on the R3 parcel was in fact would meet all the requirements. Finally, and I know Councilman Cook has to leave, but I want to reiterate again that this is just not R3. There are 6 commitments that talk about it shall be only owner occupied, no subletting. There's a reservation of a buffer space to the east. This open space tonight, should the R3 be approved, will preserve the space to the south, and that no access from the R3 will be directly onto Pennington Road, and that the nearest mobile home, manufactured home to Pennington would be at least 350 feet away. The Plan Commission's favorable recommendation to this body should hold considerable weight. They are the body that had the public hearing, and this is not, and weighed the evidence, weighed all the documentation, and sent a favorable recommendation to you. To overturn that favorable recommendation, I think puts this council in a very awkward position, going against your Planning Commission. And you could even say going against it would be arbitrary and capricious, given that the evidence that we presented tonight and the evidence that the Planning Commission considered. With that, I would be open to any final questions you might have.
No questions?
I have a statement.
Okay.
A year ago, this was presented to us. And a year ago, it wasn't about the kind, quality, or the people that lived in any of it. It was about safety. Later on in the year, we had another area that we were talking about rezonings on, and it had 13 houses in it. You pointed out at that point in time that those 13 houses created possibly 100 vehicles in traffic in a day's time. Taking this map and flopping it from one side to the other, it looks like you could put, and I know it, at no point in time have you stated how many, but it looks like if we take one map and we just flop it over, we could put maybe 40 or 50 homes in this next, in section 2 there. There's 40 available lots that I understand what she's saying is that was the original, that was Toy Weber's original thing, and it has infrastructure that needs to be replaced. That could be where the infiltration is coming from. But the investment hasn't been made here. This has never been about the quality of home. It's been, again, about the public safety.
And let me address that. I'm sorry.
No, I'm not done. The issue is, it's a non-jurisdictional area. And we talk about tax base and we talk about this. This board doesn't get that. What this board does get is an opportunity to look into the future and see what we have and what we can do to try to protect the peoples. So with that, again, it's still public health, safety, and welfare. It's the same thing it was a year ago. Nothing that you have said has changed that, Ross. And with that, I would make a motion to...
I would like to respond to that.
Go ahead.
The public health, safety, and welfare issue is something that the Planning Commission considered also. And I know this body is a legislating body and can consider almost anything. What I am here to tell you is that before the first shovelful of dirt can be turned, the Planning Commission could very well require a traffic study. It could require all kinds of things to go to your point. And if none of those issues are to the satisfaction of the Planning Commission, it doesn't get approved. There is no shovel to turn. It stops at that point. So I appreciate what you're saying, but this is a zoning issue, and I think what you're saying is that if the Planning Commission was doing their job, they wouldn't have approved it. They wouldn't have considered the health, safety, and welfare, but they did. So what I'm saying is that to overturn the favorable recommendation could be considered arbitrary and capricious. That'll sit down. Thank you.
I'd still make a motion that we not...
My concern is what I told you about the runoff water. There is no comprehensive plans or drawing from Mr. Holloway's group to address that issue adequately for the homeowners. I've not seen it. I've talked to Jan. Apparently it's not available. And without that being available, I don't think any zoning should be changed on the functionality right at this point until Mooresville or somebody comes and does a study either at the county level, because we're in the county, but we're in the buffer zone for expansion at some point in time. That needs to be addressed. There's drainage issues now, and it's going to get compounded the more we put roadways in, trailers, houses, etc. So before we rezone any more in that area, bound by Pennington, Orchard, and 144, I think there has to be a comprehensive study done by somebody to address the drainage issues. Not to mention the fact you got two different sewer plants over there, one for Pepperview and I guess one for the mobile trailer park. And we know about 4 or 5 years ago, there was a stench odor so bad, we were trying to figure out where it was coming from. Well, apparently it was coming from Ashbury Ridge. So my concern is bacteria and things like that. They could get in the lake, could affect the fish, wildlife, and also anybody that would happen to have a well could have some concerns about the drinking water.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Sorry, Tom, I see you saying go ahead. Okay.
But it's still, I think any engineer worth his salt is going to tell you that he's going to improve the drainage issue. But it's still the same thing it was a year ago. And with that, I would make the motion that we not accept the favorable recommendation on the briefing.
I second that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor? Aye.
So we would withdraw our open space request.
I was going to pass that.
Well, I might have to arm wrestle you over that one.
I would think.
Yes.
So they can get up and go if they want to.
Yeah, you're-
We really need Jeff here for the next item.
Yes.
We probably need a motion to acknowledge withdrawal of the open space.
Yeah, I'll take care of that.
Okay, thanks.
I'll take care of that. I think you can figure this out.
Where's Mike? Next item, are we ready to proceed? Oh.
And so real quickly, I think one thing to clear up the record that we're gonna need to do is, Mr. Hallwell indicated that they would be removing or withdrawing their request for the open space. So if we could, just for a clean record, have somebody move. Yeah, thanks.
So, he's made a motion to withdraw, to accept the withdrawal, I guess,
Of the open zone.
of the open space zoning that Mr. Hawley presented.
Second.
We have a motion and a second, all in favor? Aye.
Thank you.
Efficient. Mr. Mayfield with the health insurance.
You get the 10-minute version now?
Better be 5.
5? Wow. You guys already have a packet. I kind of put it in the same format that I put it in the last few years, pared it down. I'm just going to go through this really fast. We got 76 members, 233 people on the plan. Our plan year-to-date costs, I show you in there, we had a report on 6/30. We'd received $321,000 back over what we had paid in reinsurance reimbursements. That went to 525, and I just got a report last week that we got another 31,000. So we've received about 108,000 more back than we paid in last year. Not a great year. Pharmacy costs are up. The insurance committee, we went through all of this in the insurance committee meeting. Pharmacy costs are way up. Specialty drugs are up 122%, and that's not unusual given what's going on in the industry. I listed 2 drugs there that are exceedingly high. They both do kind of the same thing as for psoriasis, skin stuff. One is $64,000 annually, the other one is $67,000 annually. A little bit below that, you see that as of 6 months, specialty drugs were $70,000 of the $168,000, so pretty high. We had a proposal from CoreSource, our TPA, to enter into an agreement with ElectRx, which is a Canadian, they're actually here, but they also have Canadian pharmacy. I put in here, Trump has not signed that executive order on pharmacy yet. If he does, we may not need this, because what his order says is you can't charge any more than what they could bring in from Canada. So we might not need that. It would not hurt to go ahead and enter into the agreement if that does not happen. It costs us nothing to enter into the agreement. The savings, we took the top 20 drugs, specialty drugs, was about a $94,000 a year savings over what we're doing with Caremark. Teladoc, which we implemented 2 years ago, 3 years ago, we are the #1 user for CoreSource. So we saved about 10 grand through the first 6 months. It's working well, and we make no changes there. Page 2 was recommendations that I made to the insurance committee, which, as I noted at the bottom of that page, they did not accept any of those recommendations at this time. I would point out that the town pays 97% of all of the claims expense for the employees, and industry standard is about 80%. So we have a very rich plan. The next page, page 3, shows that the renewal reinsurance costs are $497,751 versus $448 last year. It's an 11% increase. And that's based, actually, I'm surprised it's that because we received $108,303 more than we paid last year, and we still have 2 more months to go. And I know there's some claims outstanding that have not come in yet. The fixed costs, which is what we pay CoreSource to process the claims and to do some other things, are up from $59,207 to $60,483. Very minor. And the number that we've always budgeted off of is the maximum exposure, which last year was $2.664 million. This year would be $2.844 million, 7% increase. We have lasers, or they're higher deductibles, they call them lasers in the industry, on 4 people this year. One of the lasers we had last year was removed. One of the lasers we had last year went up another $5,000. And those lasers for this year are $80,000, $105,000, $425,000, and $200,000, which means on those 4 individuals, which are not identified in here, we pay the claims up to that amount. I can tell you the one that was $80,000, we paid about, I think it was about $64,000 last year. We didn't have to hit the laser, so. The other 2 we're gonna hit those. We've hit them this year. We started on this back in June. Actually, I started before that, but we met in June. I've outlined all of that. We reduced the cost down a little bit. And my recommendation is, well, this page here, you see, we had 9 quotes, 9 different reinsured carriers. Some were uncompetitive. We had 3 that were pretty good, but we're going to recommend that we stay with the current carrier, which is what I outlined in the front page. It does show the lasers on there. The names are all blacked out, so nobody needs to know who those are. And that's really it.
One question. The insurance committee met a couple times on this. We have talked back and forth. Dean did make some recommendations. At this time, those recommendations would have possibly saved the town some money. However, it would have cost the employees money. We're going into a very rough 2 years coming up. We've been warned. At our insurance board meeting, we talked about thinking that this year, let's see if we can get by. I think with the numbers that we're seeing here, we can go with our current budget and still get by safely. I'm going to say that it was the recommendation of the insurance board to renew with Renrich, the same company that we had last year, and to move forward with it.
And we were going to make the Elect RX contract.
We were going to have you go ahead and do the Elect RX. That is strictly voluntary. It was something that he will sit down with anyone that's on a specialty drug. We won't know who they are and say, this is how we're going to go through this. And just see if they want to. This is an opportunity for the employee to step up and say, yeah, I want to save the program, or I want to save the insurance dollars, and hopefully keep our benefits exactly the same in coming years.
Yeah. So that's what I would do. I would sit down. The last 3 years, we've had an annual meeting with the employees. I know we're short on time here, but we've had an annual meeting. It's gone really well. Last year, we had some people that thought they were signed up for Teledyne. Well, they had the app, but they weren't signed up for it. So I had a list of who was signed up, who wasn't signed up, and we went through and got that. So that's one of the reasons the utilization's up this year. People really use it, like it, you know. I would do the same thing, except not in a group setting. I know who's using the specialty drug. There's about 20 specialty drugs that are really, and that list is in there. It's pretty self-explanatory. And I would just reach out to those members or dependents, depending on who it is, and say, you know, as an example, the drug you're taking costs $65,000 a year. we can enter into an agreement with this Canadian pharmacy, and it's $33,000 a year. They don't want to do it, they don't have to do it. It is strictly because it's an individual. The town's contracting for the service, but the individual has to enter into the, just like any other pharmacy. So, so we would do that on a one-on-one basis. It's really about 11 or 12 people probably.
You said we couldn't push anyone off of the podium.
The only other thing, and we touched on this at the insurance meeting, but I didn't put it in here, is CareSmart, who's CVS, Caremark, that's who does our thing. I'd forgotten, they asked that we take multivitamins off of it's on our prescription plan, and it shouldn't be. So they've asked that we take that off and set paperwork. It's an over-the-counter multivitamin that we pay for when you use your card. And it's been on there. I don't even know that anybody's using it, but they said we need to clean it up, the language, so I've got that. So with that, any questions?
I'll make a motion that we reduce the Greenwich and that we take multivitamins off of our prescription.
And elect RX.
Okay, we have a motion, we have a second.
Second.
We have a motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
I'm going to recuse per the advice of the attorney. Okay? But the motion passes.
Thank you. Are you in tomorrow? Because I can either stay and get signed or do it tomorrow, whichever.
Okay, next item on the agenda. Thank you. The TOA SB1. Do you want to introduce that?
I can. So, the SB1 is from Mike Dellinger, the County Economic Development Commission. He attached documents supporting TOA's tax request for a 10-year tax abatement on new personal property for the Mooresville facility. The gross value of the property is $5,050,642. The new property that they're bringing in at the scheduled net value of $3,498,512. We will have to. It looks like the property has already been installed already, so we're going to have to go about that procedure of granting the variance, having the hearing, and having that advertised. So, in all actuality, you can't take any action today. We'll get the hearing advertised for your next meeting. We will have that hearing, and then you can take action on the tax abatement itself.
Is this a do you approve a statement of non-compliance? Is that what it is?
No, this is a request. From my understanding, this is a request for a new personal property tax abatement.
But since they've already installed it.
So essentially what you have to do, when it comes to personal property tax abatement, the abatement needs to have been granted prior to the installing of that property pursuant to code. It needs to be an incentive for the property to come in. In the occasion in which the property has been installed prior to consideration, they can request for consideration for the council. To waive that, you have to have a public hearing for that, and then take action to waive it, and then consider the abatement itself.
Is there two public hearings then, or is
No,
there
it's
just
a single
one
public hearing
for both actions?
Correct.
Okay.
So it's a public hearing for the waiver.
Okay. I think I worded it wrong, but that's what I was getting at.
Okay.
So there's nothing to do tonight?
There's nothing to do.
Okay. Oh, go ahead.
I guess my question is, how are you reading that? Are you reading that the Toyota program that will launch at the end of the year is what they're asking for? Because if you go down here, it says, second one is for the redesigned Highlander Toyota. It will launch at the end of this year, beginning of next. So they're not using the equipment. They purchased it, but it doesn't mean that they're using it.
So the way I read it is because the equipment has been installed already.
Okay.
The statute talks about installation.
Okay. Then do you need a motion to hold a public hearing?
No, we'll just advertise it because it's been requested, so.
Okay.
Okay, next, or any other questions? I didn't want to cut you off though. Okay. Next item, Southside Sewer Project. Sorry you had to wait so long, Kent.
That's okay. Good evening, Ken Elliott, Banyan Engineering. I came before you this evening. One of the things that we're doing right now, we're in the midst of our Phase 2 sanitary sewer design project. And with that, we have several lift stations we're replacing equipment in only and putting backup generators. Then we're actually creating a new lift station at TOA to get rid of the siphon. And we're rerouting and eliminating another lift station at the park, the industrial park, going down to the new Merriman Road lift station as part of Phase 1. A lot of lift station work going on in that piece. One of them that we're talking about tonight is Crosby Road lift station, which is kind of in the northwest corner of Crosby Road and State Road 67. And it's a smaller lift station. There wasn't good records or data on what actually that station was at the time we looked at the study. We knew from the size of the force main what we thought it was currently, and then what we could possibly increase the size to, which was going from basically 175 gallon a minute pumps to possibly 500 to 600 gallon a minute pumps. It was based on basically the depth and the diameter of the wet well, what's there right now. We went out there, did the survey, were able to get the depth of it, and it's not what the plans had. It's a lot shallower. So with that, the capacity of those pumps have to be smaller than that, what we thought was 500 to 600 gallon a minute pumps that we were able to put in there. We looked, I think we can do about 240 to 285 gallons a minute in the existing station there. So we are gaining capacity. Another thing though with that, the council moved forward with eliminating the Hansel Parkway lift station, which did pump into Crosby. Now it gravities down to Merriman. It doesn't even flow through that station, so it relieves some flow from that. We also got rid of the siphon and could put a lift station at TOA, so now anything north of there can gravity into TOA instead of gravity into Crosby, because it couldn't gravity into the siphon section. So we've eliminated two potential flow or opportunities of growth while we were looking at 500 to 600 initially for Crosby, kind of beefing that up. If we wanted to keep that flow rate, we would have to create a whole new lift station beside it. And in that little area, it's shoehorned right in through there. The topography's rough, so it'd be pretty expensive and a little kind of critical to be able to do that and keep that station online at the same time. So my recommendation is to maximize what we can that's there, but if you say, hey, we want that flow, that 500 to 600 gallon a minute flow, it's going to cost more money to do that, and we have to do some more design and survey work in that area to create that. At this time, I don't think it's critical that we need to do that, but Shane asked that I came tonight and inform the council of that, and I know I've talked to the wastewater liaison a time or two regarding it as well, so he was aware of it, Tom was. So just kind of needed a decision so we can continue with our design work, so we can get everything buttoned up and ready to bid for Phase 2 project. A lot of information, I know.
Do you have any estimates of costs for a new lift station?
It would be, I'm estimating probably $400,000 to $600,000 more than replacing basically the pumps, electrical controls.
But we're increasing the pumps.
Yes, we're essentially, we think they're about 175. We don't know. We don't have the records on what's in there right now. We can pump up to 285 gallons a minute, possibly 300 gallons a minute.
Plus we've reduced flow from.
Yeah, we've eliminated the major flow if it was from Hansel Parkway. So, but it's a change from what the original scope of work that we were
right.
looking at.
I wanted the council to make that decision.
The original original plan was that thick, and I don't know that I knew that it was a 600 gallon a minute lift station there. I don't know that I read every single line item in there, but to me it makes sense. The big, Shane and I discussed about, the big engine won't fit down in there. We can buy a bigger vehicle to put it down in, or we can be satisfied with what we got. I don't have a problem with that, since part of that is taking all of our industrial park off of that. So basically all we would have would be from, I don't even know if the cafeteria there, the old cafeteria, I don't know if it gravity flows back into Hansel, or if it originally headed north there.
I think it heads north in that
And
gravity.
so from Poe's, or from the old cafeteria north, I mean, that's all we have, and there's an addition, a housing addition.
And apartments there.
A couple of small users, and then some R3s, an apartment complex. So, anything west, he addressed it, we could gravity flow up to, down Cherry Blossom and in there somehow.
The lift station at Hansel Parkway was 175 gallon minutes, so you're almost matching what was coming from Hansel Parkway. The residential homes that are there and the apartments, I was looking at it, it's about 15 to 20 gallons a minute, the peak with those, so we got a lot of room to grow in it.
I mean, I think we had asked him to move forward with the bidding process, and this is a change order before, or just a change in the spec before you bid it, and I would have to default to their expertise, and I'm confident that this will be fine.
Okay.
So therefore, it's a motion to allow them that change. I think at some point in time, we're looking at possibly changing, not making it a brand specific bid on pumps, is that correct?
We'll have 2 approved and then or equals as well.
Okay. So that would be in the form of a motion.
Okay, so we have a motion, do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor? Aye. And I know I didn't ask you to come to do this, but do you have any update on phase 1 while you're here? If not, that's okay.
We started receiving shop drawings last week. They'll start initially with the bore across 67, jack and bore the steel casing, get that in. Then they'll probably jump to the lift stations, because those will be the 2 critical items. And they want to get those well underway, and then they'll have their pipe crews come in after that. They're talking about mid this month, mobilizing.
Okay. Thank you. Any other questions? Sorry you had to sit so
No, that's
long.
fine. Is there anything else that the council needs me for this evening? Joel?
Pizza.
I think we're okay for right now.
Okay, all right. Thank you. I'm gonna head out.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Large, 2 copies.
Next item is department head reports.
That's you, you're up there, Matt.
Okay. You got anything, Dave? Okay. Fair enough. So I have, I gave you guys earlier today your run stats for last month. We had 102 EMS runs, 14 fires, and then 37 calls for a total of 153. Also, last week, the 31st, I believe it was, the baby box was installed, and it is getting in the process. I am writing a policy for that. So our dispatch, police officers, the fire personnel, and all that stuff can be prepped. From what I've read so far with that, there has to be 7 times of testing before it actually goes active. So I'm hoping by September, middle of September, we'll hopefully have it up and running for good. Sooner? We can try. We're going to try. How's that?
I appreciate the effort. Yes, you are correct. It does have to be 7 successful times.
Yeah, so I also had a gentleman that filled out FMLA paperwork
I looked over it. Everything looks in order. And with your guys' approval, hopefully we can get it passed for him and all that. So,
Should I have you review, what's the process there? You'll review it and then let us look at it, or what?
Yeah, I mean, each municipality kind of has it separately, so I mean, do you guys have a policy or procedure through the HR to, because normally what happens if there's an FMLA issue, then notice is provided to them saying, this is your FMLA policy, you have to, putting them on notice to qualify it and certify it as an FMLA issue. So that notice can come out from the clerk treasurer based upon the circumstance, because normally the clerk treasurer is one of your HIPAA compliance cleared individuals. And so, and then the election of the FMLA is done by the employee itself. Does that make sense?
We have voted to approve them here in the past.
You have?
I know in our town employee policy, it states that the town council has to approve FMLA. So that may be something that we need to look at when we move forward with our HR consultant.
That just gives me a lot of.
Hold on a second here.
I believe the one that we approved was on a night that Beth or one of the other attorneys was here. What section is that?
There's an index. Should have.
It says FMLA.
Tommy, is there an index to your
Yeah,
copy?
there's an index, and that's where I'm really struggling here. Maybe if you've seen this more often than I have. If I go here, page 7, family and medical leave policy. I would assume 8.7, but apparently I don't know how to read. I know it's in there somewhere because that's why
It is, but
that's
it's
why
not.
I brought it.
It's not.
I don't know which page it is. You want to keep looking?
You guys want to?
And my only hesitation with it coming before the council is you're gonna have HIPAA protected information that's regarded in the application itself. But so long as we keep this confidential, and we present it in a way where it's confidential, and protects the covered individual.
Jules, in the past, what we've done is it has been brought to us from the department head, have an employee, no names, no numbers, nothing like that, that meets all the requirements of the FMLA, they've filled out the application, the doctors have done their part of it, everything is adequate and sufficient, and correct, and then we just approve it. And we don't have a clue, the only thing that we may know is what department.
Okay. so long as it's a situation like that, I feel.
It is very sanitary, or it always has been in the past. Usually, we don't even see that.
Okay.
We count on them. The attorney has, in the past, has looked at it just to make sure that everything is proper. And we go from there.
So basically, you're just approving
And-
their
and-
request.
And what I was told is it's because that's the way it was listed in that policy that was adopted in 2011.
Gotcha. And with that, in reviewing this, it looks like all the paperwork is proper for an FMLA classification for this individual. Do you keep this, or does this go to?
I was told that I'd give it to her.
And then, so I think you would be okay taking that action for the employee recommended by the chief.
Okay, do I have a motion
I'll make that motion.
to approve?
Yes.
We have a motion to approve the FMLA. Do we have a second? We have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
The next thing that I have to ask you guys about is that with a previous retirement, that leaves us open with talking with Diane and Debbie in the office at Town Hall. We do have a list, but it is currently expired. I do have one more candidate on that list that can be offered a position with the COVID. But I also don't know where he stands, if he's going to take the job or not take the job, or if he's got another job offer someplace else. I would like to pursue that in offering a conditional offer of employment for him, for the retired position that just happened a few months ago. And then also start a new list for future retirements that are coming up in the future.
And so when you say that the list is expired, that they're still eligible, if we weren't in a pandemic year where extensions were granted, the list would be expired. However, since COVID has hit and the governor has put these moratoriums on certain things expiring,
Correct.
You're saying he's still in the window. Okay.
So, yeah, I still have one candidate that's left on that list. I'm just asking if I can go ahead and pursue that, since we did have a retiree a few months ago.
Yeah, so with all of the executive orders that the governor's put out, he has put an extension saying that the deadlines and essentially statute of limitation type situations where action has to be taken by a certain time frame are suspended during the health emergency, and so I think you'd be okay to still operate off that list. When would, let me ask one, when did that list expire? When would that list have expired?
We started the process 2018. It was a list for 1 year. So, and then the COVID hit, so we hadn't really started a new list.
Okay.
December of 2018. That makes it easier.
So December 2018 is when you started, so it would have run through December of 2019?
Correct.
Okay, now that, yeah, I don't know that we could do that because the health emergency was not declared until March.
Right, and that's kind of where I would.
Yeah, and so I think that list had expired prior to the health emergency, so I think we have to go.
What part is expired? I apologize, I don't understand that. The testing part, or is that?
Chief Mesker had basically said that he was going to keep that list for 1 year and then redo a new list to keep it going, flowing.
But that's an in-house, that's not a state or federal guideline?
Normally, when you go through the qualification processes and you send somebody through the testing and both the physical testing, the drug screening, things of that nature, those lists stay good for about a year because things change within that year. And so the expiration of that list, you have to start the testing process again. That keeps it fresh and open for everybody. So I'm assuming, and this is an assumption on my part, that we're talking about the expiration of that list pursuant to the state hiring procedures.
Correct.
As opposed to just an internal Mooresville What I can do is, if we're able to qualify it under the COVID issue, that's gonna continue through August. So if you wanna get me a copy of the list, so I can see it and see how it's set up, and then I'll do some research as to whether or not that would have been an internal policy of the Mooresville or the state policy for the expiration of the list, and then I'll let you know, and then we can bring it back to council.
Yeah, my understanding it was just an internal list, but
Okay.
again, I was only a captain at that point in time
Yeah,
when
I
that list was
understand.
made.
So you're gonna get him the information then? Sure. Okay, so anything else?
Nothing else unless you guys have anything.
No, thank you. Thanks. Legal?
Okay, a couple things, and I'll try and do this quickly. First of all, with the roofing contract, I've been in contact with counsel for Mr. Smalling. He's indicating that there seems to have been a misunderstanding between the clients, that Mr. Smalling had submitted his bid for the insurance work with an understanding there would be a change order as he wrote the bid for damage covered by the storm. It is their position that if we want to move to the next lowest responsible bidder to do the work, because what I expressed to them is, it looks like the bid was made for complete repair and renovation of both roofs. If that's not what he's going to do under his bid as written, then we'll move on to the next. If it's what he is going to do, then he can start. So the position was that there had to be a change order in order for him to do it, but that because of his understanding with the town and what he expected, he said the board reviewed the bids with the breakdown of the work to be completed and awarded to Smalling with that understanding being that it was an insurance bid. If the board wishes to go to the next lowest bidder, his client, Mr. Smalling, will need to be compensated for the time and effort it has taken and been invested in the matter, including securing material, post-bid communications, and time. We will work with this client to get that invoice put together and submit it to us. So I'm taking that as a no, he is not going to do it for the bid amount that was placed in. Once I get that invoice, I'll bring it to the council for their consideration. But at this point, I think we can move on to the next bidder, lowest responsive and responsible bidder, so long as they're doing both of those rows for what they bid it for.
So you want the bill for his time?
Yes.
For the misunderstanding. So do we get the bill for your time? Do we get the counter? I mean, I get it was a misunderstanding, but that misunderstanding could have been solved 3 months ago. Simple questions that were asked.
And what I will say is I will bring the invoice to the council for consideration, and that's it.
Okay.
And then you decide what you do with that invoice. It's not an invoice for a service that's been provided that you've contracted for. This is an invoice for time and effort, I think, that they believe to be tied to a bid that they received. But the council can make up their determination as to whether or not that's compensable.
Has there been any covering? Did he do anything? Tarps or anything like that?
My understanding is that there may have been some temporary coverings that were placed up there, but I don't know. And Dave, do you?
He did temporarily patch the building across the street.
Okay.
That's all that was done.
So, I mean, my guess is that would be included on the invoice.
So, what would be the next step then?
We'll get that invoice, but I think it's Dave to go back to the bids that you got, make sure that the next lowest responsible bidder is willing to complete the work that was bid on for what they bid, and then we can move forward with that.
And it's your contention that the bid specs that we put out were very clear and...
Well, and the fact of the matter is, when Mr. Smalling was here in front of this council, Councilman Worthen asked him very specific questions, saying, you bid this, and you said that you would do all of these for X amount of dollars. And Mr. Smalling admitted it on the record at that time, that that's what he did. but that now he wanted the change order, so.
I don't see how we're in breach if he hasn't even started the work. So how can you, he's in breach to me.
Well,
But,
yeah, we'll
okay,
save that discussion.
okay.
When Lance isn't in the room.
It's all right. You can quote me. Dave, do you want to say anything?
In anticipation of this meeting, I did reach out to the next lowest bidder, it was Sunco Construction, and asked him if he would be ready to do the work for what he bid, and he indicated that he would. I talked to him before the meeting tonight.
Bill. There's those starts.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
It does.
Okay.
Yeah, and this will be it's a little bit different than what we did because it should come through the clerk treasurer at that point, so. But no, okay. Second thing is tied to the phase 1 of the sewer project, which is ongoing, that Banning had just spoken about. We're in the process of getting the properties under contract. One of the owners, which is at the very north part of this project, the Gupta property, has reached out to our uniform acquisition offer, said that they are willing to settle for $2,000 for that claim. The normally I don't like to settle or recommend settling claims to my clients without engineering specs or without appraisals indicating the valuation of that, but at the $2,000 request point, it is a lot cheaper than paying me the 3 hours, 4 hours to go and respond and file a claim and go. You will pay a lot more to try and save money than paying that. So it's my recommendation that you approve that claim and we can wrap that one up with no other legal expenses coming out and move it on. Unless you want to pay me hourly to fight them.
Well, would anyone entertain the motion of finding a little faster attorney?
No, don't do that.
Faster in the time that you can get the work done with? Well, I'm pretty sure that clock is going to work.
Never mind. Motion to settle it upon legal counsel's recommendation.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor? Aye. So the roofing bids will be on the next agenda then? Okay. Next item, you were done, right?
Aye.
Next item, public comments for anything that's not on the agenda. Seeing none, next item is a motion for the approval of claims.
Make a motion, we approve claims in the amount of $620,739.51.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor? Aye. Motion passes. Town council comments. Councilman Worthing.
Good.
Councilman Stanley.
Still waiting on the pizza, but no, after that.
I have no comments. The next meeting date is Tuesday, August 18th. Same place at the same time. Motion, next time we have a motion to adjourn.
I will make a motion to adjourn.
We have a motion. We have a second.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor? Aye. We are adjourned. Thank you.